All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another community conversation. My name is Brandon Middleton. Really excited to have a friend and special guest, Kimate Richards, joining us today. Before I hand over the popcorn for him to introduce himself, if you're new to this space, this is literally a conversation series that we're hosting with the hopes of giving visibility to Black and Brown trailblazers and creatives and professionals to just share, what they've learned, insights, mountaintop, sand valley moments, words to your younger self, things that you would have wished somebody would have told you in a conversational format so that the next generation could potentially get to where they're going a lot faster and in a straighter line. So yeah, if you're new here, welcome. Feel free to grab a notebook and a cup of tea. And if you've been here rocking with us for a little while, thank you. We appreciate the support and the ears and the eyeballs. So with that, I'm going to give the microphone over to our special guest, Kimate, to introduce himself. Like, where are you? What are you up to? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And then we'll get into some Q&A after that. So Kimate, over to you.
All right. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Kimate Richards. I'm originally from Queens, New York, place called Rockaway. And, now I live in California for the moment and, maybe moving to Texas in the future. I am an engineer of all sorts. I started out as a applications and systems engineer years and years ago. I've kind of morphed into my career now, which is a hodgepodge, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. But it's around robotics and machine learning and spatial. And so I'd love to talk to you about all those things.
Yeah, beautiful. We could probably talk for like 5 hours on all these things, but like maybe for the person who is just getting started, maybe it's useful to understand kind of your context and your background. Like, did you know you would always be doing the work that you're doing now? Or like, you take us back to 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old Kimate back in the neighborhood.
Right.
What were you doing? What were you thinking? Like, how did you get the orientation to, be focused on engineering?
I was lucky enough to have really excellent parenting. I knew from a very young age that I was going to be some sort of engineer. My father, who was he was a chemist, chemistry degree, just kind of walked us through life and kind of saw what we were passionate about and helped us along. And I'll tell you the quickest story that I was watching television one day at 7 years old, and my father came over to me and said, "How does that work? How's the television work?" And I didn't know the answer. He's like, "Well, why don't you turn off the TV and, go find out the answer." Back in those days, you had to go to the library, right?
Yeah.
So I go to the library and I get all these books and I started reading through them and started to figure out how a television worked. And I came back home, and on my dad's workbench, he had an old TV with all the dangerous parts pulled out. And he was like, "Go ahead and go to town and figure this out." And so I had parents like that. I know a lot of people didn't have that, but I also grew up in a really kind of rough area of New York, what you would consider the projects. And so from a young age, I'd always had this idea that I was not going to be there as an adult. So that was my main focus, was to kind of get out of the projects. And, I had, parenting to help me. My older brother and I, and my younger brother, actually, all three of us, all got out of the projects, all went into some sort of engineering. So you could say I was kind of pushed in that area, but I was, I had the aptitude for it for sure.
Yeah. A lot of New Yorkers that I meet have a very keen like business sense. So they're very like entrepreneurial minded, and their hustle is like none other. They have a bunch of work ethic that can keep them up for 12, 14, 18 hours a day if the business idea or if the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is big enough. So the New Yorker, I'm sure, even though you live in California, kind of shines through still, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, I try to act like a relaxed Californian, but the reality is I'm a New Yorker at heart. And I think a lot of it is because since it's a city, in a big city, you get to see people succeed and fail right in front of you. I definitely grew up in years where, there was a heavy drug use in certain areas, and I grew up in that area. And so it was easy for me to see people succeed and fail. It was right in front of me. And so I knew from a very early start that there's places I didn't want to be as an adult. So that was one thing. And the other thing is I really love computer science, to be honest. At 7 years old, I was already writing code and really enjoying that. So I was happy that it took me into a career, and still love it.
Yeah. So did it, you took us from kind of the neighborhood and putting TV together to, I know like college, like probably had a math and CS program. Did you go that way, or did you take a non-traditional route in order to, before work started? Did you tell us more about your academic?
Yeah, so I was a little even stranger than that. So at 17, I joined the military. I joined the Navy. And I did that because I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do in college, and I didn't know if I wanted to play sports. I was generally just looking to leave New York in any way, shape, or form, any fashion I could. I wanted to see the world. My parents kind of instilled this desire to like travel, go around the world. Also wanted to, give back to my country in some form. So I chose engineering discipline in the Navy called
Mm.
nuclear field. And nuclear field is all about the propulsion system on a ship.
Mhm.
And so it was really still right up my alley. I was still writing code. I was still, dealing with electronics, the two things that I really like to do the most. And so that was at 17. So 17 through 22, I'm doing that. And the whole time I'm preparing for college, taking classes, mostly my general ed classes at that point in time, but knowing I'm going to go into some form of engineering or computer science. So I'm at right around, I think, 21, I started applying to schools, applied to the Naval Academy, applied to a bunch of schools in California as I was already out there. And, came across UC Santa Barbara, which was, at that point in time, their EE degree was pretty good, but the computer science degree was really good. So that's where I started out. And I went from there to a school called Chico State, or Cal State Chico, and they had a mechatronic program, which was really what I wanted to do. So explain real quick about mechatronics. What that is computer science, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, all in one. And the outcome of that is that you can go off and do jobs that are in like robotics, the control systems engineering. The subjects are like cutting edge and really cool, but you need to know a little bit about physics, a little bit about math, a little bit about computer science, definitely a lot about electrical engineering, all in one, to not just do the job that you're doing, but help talk to different teams.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, think about your car. Your car has all those systems, right? And you need to have a person that can understand a little bit about all of them so they can put it all together. So I think that's where I got the best education that I was going to get, was there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like for folks to hear about how it all came together from kind of like the block and the community to now I'm leaving to go into the service, and like how all these different disparate fields come together. I speak to a lot of design students these days, and I tell them that folks from design come from all different kind of walks of life. You can be an engineer who's in the design department. You can be a business person that's trying to design a new business model. You can be, architect. You can be in medical school or a law student. So I think it's more and more important these days for you to be able to go deep on something, but then also have that skill of kind of being able to articulate and communicate what you know to different audiences. And you probably have had the experience where you have to talk about what you know in a little bit different light when you're talking to a business person versus a design person versus an engineer. I would imagine you do that pretty regularly now, right?
Absolutely. And I spent a lot of years in consulting too, meaning working for other companies that I'm not an employee of, doing what I do. So not only do I have to understand what their company is about and their language, but I also have to be able to relate to them about the things that they're contracting with me to do. So these are things that they have no knowledge of whatsoever. And so you have to be able to be personable, understand their business, and understand how to talk to them in their language. And I think that's where a lot of engineers can go wrong, is they're so smart. They just want to impart all this knowledge on you in a way that they understand it, but you may not understand it. So I usually, when I see someone's eyes start to glaze over, I stop talking and I back the conversation up and try to talk to them in ways that they understand.
Yeah, that's so true. Not even for just work, like for your own children, for your, partner, anybody out there listening, maybe watching this can relate that you got to know how to speak your audience's language in order to get far with anything that you're doing. So
Right.
yeah, thank you for emphasizing that for sure. You mentioned kind of the entrepreneurial bug and spirit. Tell us a little bit about how an engineer has found a way to kind of carve out entrepreneurial kind of things. You've seen the wave of kind of web 1 and 2. You've seen the wave of mobile. You've seen kind of we were just talking about web 3 a couple minutes ago before we started the recording. How's it been to be kind of an engineer and a consulting and business mind over the multiple decades that your career has spanned?
Yeah, it's been, I'm thankful it's been close to 25 years that I've been in some form of engineering. And the whole time, so I got to see, I'm gonna sound really old, but I was there at the beginning of the web. I was there at the beginning of the .NET boom. I was definitely involved in mobile. And actually, the way my career has gone is I've kind of moved toward every major shift technologically. So, I was obviously there, and the internet started out. I used to develop Flash PHP pages, and young people probably don't even know what that is, right? And Dreamweaver, all the way through, .NET when .NET was big. And I think for me, I've worked for people, but I've always had a small business going on in the background. In my mind, even today, I always have my next journey already planned out in the technology that I want to use. I actually learned most of the things that I've learned, not actually in school, but because I was interested in the technology, I picked it up on my own and then found clients that needed it, or usually, in some order where they needed something, and I picked it up and added it to myself. So that's the kind of thing I like to do. I like to be on the more cutting edge, and I look for whatever's the next technological wave that I'm interested in. That has to be a key too. You just don't want to go off and do something just because it makes money. You want it to be interesting as well. So that's what I did is when mobile came along, I was really interested in that, the fact that people had their devices right in front of them. I was really proud to know that when someone opened their phone, likely one app on there had something to do with me. I was so proud to know that. And sometimes I look over people's shoulder. I was like, oh, I did something there. I'm really excited about that. And those are the kind of things that drive me, push me along.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And maybe to dig one level deeper into that, if you're a teenager today that is hearing stuff like crypto and Web3 and the metaverse and a bunch of these terms, and you on the surface have interest, how have you practically, what's your process into diving into something that's brand new? Do you create small games? Do you what do you do in order to pick up the technology and start to practice?
Number one, I tell people this all the time, especially young people. I spend a lot of my time learning the surface of all these different technologies, just learning what does it do at a very, very high level to decide for myself what I'm going to be interested in it, going further and deeper. So if you when people look at my YouTube feed or think my history, it's all technology, things that I don't even like. So a lot of times I'll sit and listen to 10, 15 minutes of what does this thing do before I make a decision as to how does it apply to me, or do I want to be further involved in it? So I usually start really high level, and then if I find a subject that I know I want to go deeper in, I'll take all the free resources that are out there to learn. I'll do if they're walkthroughs about the technology, if they're blogs about it, I'll go through the whole blog, I'll go through the whole walkthrough. I'll especially if there's a system that I don't know, I'll download the system, install it, start to use it, just start to play with things in my spare time. And if I know that it's an area that I really want to go deep in, like for me, it's spatial and robotics. Those are my two fields. Then I'm fully immersed in it. So when I'm not doing work and I have a free moment on my cell phone, which is easy right now. If you want to learn something brand new, pop out your phone, Medium, Udemy, like all these different platforms. And for me, because I'm in robotics, a lot of the universities are putting out their programs publicly. You can't go apply for a degree in the subject, but you can see all the content from all the classes. Stanford is the #1 school for me. I'll pop on there, and you can take the courses that master's degree students taking right now for free. And so that's a way that I, in my free time, learn some things.
Yeah, and hopefully for you that's listening or watching this, that's something that's super practical. And I laugh about this a little bit, but like back when I was trying to learn networking, for example, I actually had to buy switches and like rack them up and like put them in my closet in my apartment in order to make them work. And the fact that like today, all you need most times is either a laptop or a mobile phone and you're good to go. Like you could literally get started with no money down, just like time to sit down and learn it and try stuff out. And yeah, I don't know if you think kids are spoiled these days, Kimate, but
I didn't want to say it because that's the #1. Don't let me get started with my gray hair. My kids are super spoiled now. But I'll say this, you don't even have to go to the library anymore. Like when I was a kid and I was telling that story, now it's right here. It's on your phone. You don't have to go anywhere. Usually there's no investment or very little investment that you have to make. Even things that are physical, like you were talking about network engineering, in my case, robotics, you don't even need to go buy anything anymore. Or if you do, it's real cheap to go explore. So there's no excuses now. There's none. And I think we didn't have excuses when we were young either, except that, internet was not the same as it is now and not as fast and plentiful. Well, in my case, it didn't exist when I started. But this is the time, and all the technology is there. It's really about how much drive you have and desire to get where you want to be.
Yeah. So let's shift over a little bit to that we call these talks community conversations, and the community is stemmed from a thing I've been running for a couple of years called Community College. And it was actually born at Stanford. And we try to take the interface of higher ed and the community and find interesting ways for that interface to be strengthened, in that we've invited some community organizations to shadow classes that I teach at Stanford, and we've given the students assignments to go out into the community and learn about some of the social challenges that exist like right in their backyards. So yeah, to that particular point, I'd love for you to talk through, I know you have a big heart for the community, some of the things that you've stood up, taking your love of STEM and then your love of community and like putting opportunity in front of students. Talk to us about some of those projects.
Wow. Over the years, what I noticed is that a lot of young people aren't exposed to engineers or aren't exposed to computer scientists. And I'm also a pilot. I can't have a meeting without interjecting that I'm also a pilot, right? Any pilot in the world is going to tell you they're a pilot in 5 minutes, right? I think it's been 5 minutes. So those subjects for me are near and dear to my heart, but I know that certain communities don't even hear about that. They don't hear that you can make more money being an engineer than anything in the world. You look at like Elon Musk and others right there. The most richest people in the world are in engineering. And so when I go into certain communities, I know that I'm a person that people can see, and they know that they can do what I can do. Just by me saying, hey, you know what, I came from exactly where you came from, and probably worse. And I'm here now, just the way I am right now. So you can do it too. Don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anybody tell you you can't. You can be right there. And I think that it was well received by the youth, but not well received by the schools. So I was having a hard time getting into the school system and saying, hey, you need to have more STEM programs. And the school system was actually like saying to me, hey, by the way, we don't have any books. So we're not at the level of having a STEM program because we don't even have, you want us to get, chemical equipment. We don't even have books. So I decided at some point to partner with the community and a lot of churches and things like that to stand up little educational systems in the Bay Area. So I started a class in mobile app development a few years ago, and that morphed into just general cloud computing and development, that kind of thing. And then finally, in the last few years, I've had a robotic summer camp for kids, and I'm mainly focused on minorities and girls, because those are the two groups that don't seem to be represented, at least in the Bay Area, in engineering at all. And so I, focused on that, made sure that we use examples and language that's inclusive of those groups, and that's hard. It's really, being an engineer, there's certain things that you say and that everybody else knows that's in your community, like Star Trek references and Star Wars, and you say things that you expect everybody to know, but that's really exclusive language, and it cuts a lot of people out of the conversation. So that's one of those things that I really focused a lot of time on, making sure that people felt represented, and also that people know that being an engineer is not about just writing code. A lot of times it's about design, it's about art, thinking about things out of the box. Anyway, I can keep going.
Yeah. I love what I'm hearing, and that focus on inclusion and like equity and diversity is something that I think the tech industry has focused on for the last, 10 or 15 years pretty heavily, but we still got a lot more room to grow in those areas. So to the young person that's like looking at this, the analogy that I often use is that, everybody's talking about how they want to go to the NFL or the NBA or like a sports league. And to know that there's only like, for every 100 jobs in a professional sports leagues, there's probably 1 million jobs that are available in the tech industry, where you can go and take advantage of something within STEM, science, technology, engineering, or math, and make, pretty good money. Maybe you're not making LeBron or, Kevin Durant money every single year, but if you come from like where we come from, it's definitely enough to take care of your family, to build wealth, to live a comfortable life, and then to have enough of a foundation to be able to give back to your community that you came from. Because it's never about, just getting out and staying out and never going back to show others the way. So yeah, that's been my experience. And hopefully, if you're looking at this, you're getting excited, you're getting some websites to check out, some ideas to try out. And at the end of this, you can look both of us up, Brandon Middleton or Kimate Richards on, LinkedIn or wherever on the internet. And there's a whole gang of us who are, more than happy to help you on your journey. So yeah, I appreciate those words, Kimate. And maybe we like jump into a little bit of a lightning round now. And these will just be like quick hitters to add even more context to who you are as a person, but just to humanize a little bit more. You're talking super tech right now, but like, talk to us about favorite places traveled. Like, I know we're in COVID and kind of locked down a little bit, but give me like 3 places that you would either love to get back to, or places that you've never been that are like on your bucket list where you and your family are trying to go.
I have a big bucket list, and I've been a lot of places. So, but I'd like to get back to Africa. I've been to Kenya, all up and down the coast, but I'd like to spend more time, just kind of just rolling through Africa. Places that I would go back to everywhere. There's not a place that I've been that I felt like I didn't learn something from. So I definitely would love to go back. And there's some places that are hard to get to that I really want to go, but we'll see. And one thing that's on my bucket list for a couple of years from now, if politically everything's fine, is I want to go on the Trans-Siberian Railway and take it from one end to the other. So that's about a 13, 14-day journey, but I want to do it.
Wow. Yeah, I figured that anybody who's been in the service has probably traveled a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm at 84 countries. My wife gave me a little board to put my pins in. I'm at like 84 countries.
Wow.
So
wow.
Yeah,
I got a lot of catching up to do, man.
Now, you know what? I learned something new from every one of them. I feel like I've added to myself. It's not just the food and the culture, but just a way of living. Sometimes you can get caught up in being in America and think this is the only way. And there are people that are living really comfortably in places that you wouldn't imagine, that you think are like third world countries, and they're actually living better than we are, not going through the struggle every day
Yeah.
and commuting and all the nonsense that we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. How about if we move over? I heard you mention sports, like when you're growing up, you and your brothers. What are some sports that you're into, or some things that you definitely checking out from day to day and week to week?
I grew up with a basketball in my hand at like 3 years old, and I'm trying to put it down because I'm starting to get injured. But I I love basketball. I've been playing since I was a kid. I played a year in college. It's a favorite of mine. And I got into, my kids do something called acro, this gymnastics thing. So now I'm into that. I don't do it, but I love any sport where people can kind of reach a pinnacle and they've like put everything that they can put into it, their blood, sweat, and tears. And that's, so I'm always following the like premier athletes of almost every sport.
Mm.
I
You
love
said,
the Olympics. Yeah, for that
yeah, when
reason.
you say acro, I've not heard of acro, so like double click into that a little bit more.
Yeah, acro is two or more person gymnastics. So think like Cirque du Soleil.
Okay.
When you see them throw the performers in the air and someone else gets caught over there, that it's multiple person gymnastics. So it could be up to 4 people. One of my daughters was the national champion for her age. Her and her partner, for their age group, were the national champions. And they, you can travel overseas and end up a performer in a kind of world event. They don't have an Olympic event yet because you need 32 countries to participate, and I think they got 24. But you'll see it in the Olympics coming up soon. Usually, the sport is in Eastern Europe and like Russia, that area. But my wife was into it, and I've heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it. Now I know everything about it.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome to kind of take your kids' interest. Like I've been trying to like push instruments because I play drums and like piano, and my kids, they love gaming and they love like other stuff. So it's a push and pull, like trying to give them what you got, but then also trying to pick up what they're interested in and try to like, learn some new stuff for yourself too.
I'm trying that. Yeah. I did not get my basketball kid yet that I want. I coach basketball. I don't know if you knew that. I used to coach basketball for years, and I really enjoy that.
Mhm.
But none of my kids picked up the ball in that way. My older son is into lacrosse and taekwondo, or I'm gonna get this wrong, jujitsu. There we go. And I no knowledge of either one of those sports. So I think there's a lot to be learned from your children, and you can teach what you can teach. Your work ethic is what they're going to learn either way.
Yeah. So we've hit the travel bucket. We've hit a little bit of the sports bucket. Let's go to like the resource, how you like to educate yourself, podcasts, books, movies, like that kind of thing. What are some of the either what stands out in your Hall of Fame of like things you always go to be entertained or to learn, or what are some things that are out there? Again, bucket list resources that you've had people recommend to you that you haven't done yet, but you got on the list of things to do.
So I'm really poor about reading a complete book.
Mm.
I've read a lot of books, but if you saw my library, you'd see like a page cornered off like halfway between each book. Once I get the gist of what's going on, I tend to move on. But I'll start a lot of different books and get about halfway in between. And usually, not nonfiction, but I'll usually just skip through them, get what I want to get out of it, and I moved on. And that's the same way I learn. Like, tell me what's going on at the very, very bare minimum. Once I get it, then I'll decide if I want to go deep or not in the subject. So that's the way I learn as well. But for entertainment, I these days, just like everybody else during COVID, I've kind of picked up weird hobbies. Like I watched all of Netflix like everybody else, and it wasn't quite interesting to me. So what I've gotten back into is actually robotics in a different way than I've done before. So that to me is entertainment. So and most people won't say that's entertaining for them, but for me to build something, tinker with it, design something new is a source of interest to me. So I've gotten into actual mechanical design now from the history of electrical and computers, and I'm entertained by that. Sorry, but
No,
it's entertaining to me. Yeah.
yeah, it's people like what they like, and
Yeah.
I remember growing up, And if you're like a black nerd, blurred, sometimes, people expect you to have grown up, on a basketball court, as a black person, maybe. People might expect you to be into maybe hip hop music or soul music just by the way that you look. But
Mhm.
one of the joys I have is being able to be delighted by people that are into things that on the surface I never would have taken them for. And then also on the flip side, stuff that I like that I'm able to share with other people. And on the surface, unless you engage with me and talk to me, you would never know that I, like anime or am into watching Korean dramas with my wife, or, just small things um, that, every day it's an opportunity for you to engage with people around you and kind of find out those things about them that aren't obvious.
Absolutely. And actually, I have that story about you. I didn't know that you were an artist. And I was like, I knew you at work. So I was like, man, that was a whole different, you know, side note, into your life that I didn't know. And so same thing. I'm the same way. I am very interested in a lot of things. So like I have a history in, religious history, where I was taking education in that route, and community service down that route as well. Like people don't know that stuff and they kind of freeze up and they're like, what, you did what? But you said something interesting in that the expectation that somebody like me would be in a certain thing. It is kind of, when I tell people, when people are like, you drive a nice car, was that because you played sports somewhere? And I was like, no, I'm an engineer. And they were like, oh, you must have, gotten a college basketball scholarship. I was like, no, I didn't. I started out, I went through the Navy and blah, blah, blah. And I played basketball, but it had nothing to do with my, me getting through school. And you have to kind of re-educate people and take away the things that their assumptions about you, and that you don't have to be everything that's expected by the media about your skin tone, etc. If you listen to my music playlist, it would it's nothing near what people would think it would be. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like deconstructing kind of our own biases, and then deconstructing kind of the bias of that new person that you might meet who thinks they know a little bit more than they actually do know about you, and like having the dialogue and the tact and the patience and the sensitivity with somebody across a cultural boundary. I think the last couple of years have been really rough from a health standpoint, but also from like a social justice standpoint. So
Right.
now when we're engaging as human beings, we've got to definitely like lean into some of those skills in order to like really, really hear what the other side or the other person is saying. And I know, from our relationship that you tune into a lot of different things that are totally on the other side or the other spectrum of what, you believe, or what just so that you can start to like, understand a little bit of the logic or a little bit of the reasoning. And maybe that's worth talking about, like why you would go through the lengths you go through in order to like just put your ears and your feelers out to those
you
other sides.
know you gotta you gotta meet people where they are, even to have a good conversation. And I think this world that we are in right now is amorphous. It's changing rapidly, but it's us that have to make the change. And the only way to make the change is if you understand where other people are at.
Mhm.
Certainly, I follow media that people would not otherwise follow. I definitely listen to right wing stuff and Aryan Nation stuff and all this craziness. Like the things I listen to, because I want to understand where you're coming from, what your thoughts are about a subject and why you came to the conclusion you came to, in order to one day have a conversation with you. And I'm not going to try to change you, but I understand. I want you to understand where I'm at, and I want to be able to walk into a conversation with you and have a baseline understanding of what brought you to the place that you're in right now. So that's and I think that's good for us all to do. Spend a moment away from your bubble. Just
Mhm.
it'll add to you. It will allow you to hear people a little bit more clearly. I actually, even watching the Super Bowl, I heard two different groups of people. One said that the halftime show is horrible, and the other one, it was like the best thing ever. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, how did you arrive to this place where you thought it was horrible, and where did you arrive to this place where you thought it was amazing? And I think we could all identify with one or the other, but how do you meet in the middle and say, yeah, I understand where you are and it's okay, but now listen to me about my experience. And you'll get much more reception if you can identify with a person and at least understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, for the last couple of years, it's been me looking to try to find opportunities to kind of have these forums, have these relationships, and like make them available to kind of a larger group so that folks can like really see that um, what use is kind of learning a skill or knowing how to do something if the communication and you're not able to get across certain barriers. Like you could be the smartest person in the world, but you'd be on an island kind of just unto yourself and doing your own thing for a long time. So the world that we're living in, I think the internet sped kind of the connectivity of everything and everybody, but like the person who's going to succeed in the world that we live in now and into the future is going to really, really have to lean into those people skills in addition to kind of going and being a subject matter expert in, design or engineering or business or law. So yeah, I appreciate bringing those.
Can I say something about that?
Mhm.
I think no matter how deep you are in the subject, you're going to need to work with someone else now. Like it was a point in time where, yes, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, if you were an expert in .NET, you probably were an expert in a certain thing and you didn't have to talk to anybody else so much with your expertise. Now, that's not it's not possible. You're not going to be and I don't even like the term expert because to me, you might be expert in something really, really nuanced, but you can't be an expert in the breadth of a technology anymore. So you're going to have conversations. You're going to have to be able to work in groups. You're going to have to work across cultures, across time zones, all these different things. And I think to me, when I think about hiring people, I think about their ability to not only do the job, but their interpersonal skills are just as important. Because I don't want to ruin my team that's already there because this one expert, as you will, quote unquote, has a specific skill that doesn't gel with my entire group.
Yeah. Wise words. And when you say like the world is changing so fast, like I think to my day to day, like trying to understand, crypto and Web3 and blockchain, like there's a new token and a new protocol and a new everything, like every single day, every time I kind of like turn the corner and look around. So I'm leaning on people to say, hey, can you help me to educate myself, help me to bring insights to my team, help me to just personally draw the straightest line from where I'm at to where I'm trying to go so that I don't zigzag and waste so much energy and like waste so much time. And there's like a real gain to having a community and like a network of people around you to help you steer as straight a line as possible so that because we all have finite energy, right?
Right,
Finite time, finite resources. And I'm the kind of person that's wanting to work smarter and not necessarily harder. So the community is definitely a huge component of how you do that.
Give me the cliff notes. I don't need to read the book if you read it already and this is what I need is this little piece. I prefer that, which is why I keep mentioning YouTube, because I love the fact that you can put your information out there. It may not be the gospel, but it's your experience. And then from that experience, I'll learn something and I might go away and research it on my own. But at least I picked up the things that and I think it's the way of the future. I think education is really, really important. But I also believe that once you're done with college and you got that stamp of approval, that's when your education actually starts, because now you have to educate yourself. There's no curriculum there. Then it's just you to try to figure out what you want to learn after college and moving on into the world. So that's what I do is I'll constantly have YouTube going in the background or a Discord server over here or something's going on where I can see and learn something new. And it's not just about my subject. As you know, I'm into finance and into crypto and definitely into the stock market and investments, real estate. I'm into all these different things. And because we as a community have to spend more time figuring out the financial picture for ourselves as well. They don't teach us that or at least where I'm from, they don't teach you how to manage wealth, how to generate wealth, right? How to have residual income that you don't have to get up and work to have. Like, it's just coming in because you've done something in a smart way, invested your money. And when I was growing up, to an investment would be like, oh, I'm going to get a used BMW so I look good, right? That was my, and I did that. Like I had a used Mercedes, and when the transmission went out, I couldn't afford to fix it, right? So it's like they don't teach you what to do with your money. So I think I spend a lot of my time now learning those things in some areas that I wouldn't have otherwise been taught in any of the community that I was in.
Yeah, and it's so funny, like some of the books that you probably have perused over time, when you look at your kind of university curriculum and those kind of books that you've read, and then the kind of outside resources, it's been the outside ones actually that have helped me to be more financially fit and to understand kind of the whole world and ecosystem of passive kind of investment, whether it be through real estate or some other means. But the idea that you could literally make money while you're sleeping had so much appeal to me, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't find out or invest more time to learn about it earlier. So I think
we all have to learn it the hard way, I believe. I'm sorry to cut you off, but yeah, you have to learn it over time. But I think now people have more ability to learn those things even than we did growing up. Like, it's because of the internet, because of there are lots of ways for you to pick up a subject. Like, if you're interested in real estate, a million different ways you can go and learn for free without having to put a dollar out there, buy a book or any of that stuff.
Yeah. And one example is probably 2 weeks old now, but you're talking about Discord. I was on a Discord that was more about kind of crypto and blockchain, but this guy put on a workshop for, I think it was 100 people, and it was about something called smart contracts. So feel free to, Google or search for smart contracts if you're listening or you're watching and you don't know what that is. But I was expecting the person to be like this seasoned veteran, and like on Twitter, he had been like known as somebody who was a person to watch and the subject matter expert in the space. But this guy, I get on, and he's a 19-year-old like college sophomore who's studying CS and computer science and math for his day work during the university time. But like on the side, he spends all of his time kind of writing smart contracts and like these applications that plug into different blockchains to provide value for different clients. And he's been consulting for a couple of years, and he's putting on classes for 100 people at $50 per person. So like, this person is amassing a nice little nest egg for himself based on his ability to know something, but then also to kind of network, use social media, use a community in order to amplify the message. And then the product itself, he was sharp, he gave out really good advice and really good tips and stuff like that. But when I was in school, that was not possible. And when you were in school, that was not possible. So
no, and you can learn from anybody. That's the thing is, you and like I said, don't take it as maybe the truth. Go watch the thing, then go verify, that what they're saying makes sense. And then where you spend your time is important. Like you mentioned, what you do with your time, but like for me, I think of what's the opportunity cost of doing the thing that I'm about to do. So if I'm going to sit for an hour and watch a mindless movie, that's an hour that I'm not going to be learning anything, but maybe that's entertainment. Maybe I needed that, right? I needed that break. But it's about, what the thing that you're about to watch or the thing that you're about to do, is it going to add to you in some way? And adding to you can be you decompressing, you kind of relaxing, right? That could add to you. A lot of times I'll just sit and listen to music and drive, in my car. I love that. And then, my mind is kind of blank and I'm driving along, or for me, flying along in a plane. That's a way for me to decompress. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's learning how to be good to yourself is something that a lot of people haven't paid that much attention to, but I think the pandemic kind of forced us to look at how we treat each other, social justice movements, and then also, the fact that we've been locked in our houses and probably not been getting as much exercise as we need, and probably not sleeping the way or eating the way that we should. So now is definitely the time to, if you haven't been being good to yourself, put that on top of the priority list.
What I also, for me though, this has been great because, I've had to commute into some office for so long that I didn't have time to actually spend 2 hours or 3 hours, outside of work, because I went from work to home and dinner and kids and all that, and then I get up and do the same thing every day, and then there's a list of things for me to do over the weekend. So now I have like 3 hours where I don't have any of that to do. So I've actually learned more and gotten in better shape during COVID than before COVID, and it's because I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I got 3 hours and I'm at home. I have room for a home gym. Let me put a gym in my home. And then I have no excuse when the gym is in my garage, then I have no excuse. So, and that's kind of the way I took COVID, as an opportunity to learn more about other subjects and to, develop a hobby and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, man, it's been, I know you just got like a couple minutes left, but I just wanted to, on behalf of our community, say thank you for, making some time available. I know that the people that watch this and listen to this will get some good insights and some good things to try out, based on our discussion here today. So any, last one or two things that you might say to that young person, if you don't get anything except this and this from this interaction today, make sure you put this in your back pocket.
Your journey is your own. Like, one thing I learned is if I listened to what people told me that I was going to be, or how I was, how life is going to go for me, I would not be here. An inner city New York kid who has made it to California and, and around the world and all that. There's no way I would have done that if I would have just listened to where the box people put me in. Yeah. So that's number one. Just, if you have a goal, go after that goal. Don't let anything stop you. And it's, you can do some fun things for now, but realize that, your goal is the most important thing that you should be working on. And it's hard to do when you're young. It's like, there's fun over here, there's goals over there, right? So my path was kind of right down the middle for a while. Then I said to myself, here, my goal is the most important thing. Let me go get that. So that's the only advice I can give is be true to yourself. And, don't waste your time. Time is short. I remember probably sitting in this chair that a lot of you guys are sitting in not too long ago. It felt like to me, and now I got gray hair. It all went by so fast, and that's the thing is the time is so short. So just, spend the time doing the things that are important to you, that enrich you. And those other things will be there later on,
Yeah. Well, that's a mic droppable kind of moment right there. I'll say, drink water, be good to yourself, exercise every day, mind your business, and I think the rest will take care of itself. But man, Kimate, I appreciate you connecting. All the best to you and your family, and I'm sure we'll catch each other soon once some of this stuff lifts up here.
You as well, man. Take care of your family, and be good to yourself. And I know all of you out there, same thing. And reach out to me on LinkedIn for sure. I'd love to spend some time, and it's definitely not a bother at all.
Perfect. All right. Well, we will catch y'all on the next episode of A Community Conversation. Thank you again, Kimate. We will catch all of you on the flip side of this. So until we connect next time, just be good to yourself, take care, and we'll see you next time around.